Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the DFO DFS Report. The season is winding down. We have a 4-game slate on this Monday, the last day of March 31st, almost into April, which seems outrageous. But yeah, basically just 2 more weeks of NHL hockey, at least DFS hockey with us. I mean, we never know. We might dabble in the playoffs, at least in the first couple rounds when there's 4 games a night. Once it starts to get down to those 2-game slates, it gets a little bit boring. But Zach, I hope you had a good weekend. Baseball is fully underway. I got a win in my first fantasy baseball week, which was great. And I've got all 3 of my season-long fantasy hockey teams in the semifinals this week. So all things coming up, Brock, over here. Hopefully we have a big DFS night to go on top.
Yeah, very nice, man. Congrats. That's some good stuff there. I actually just took over a Dynasty fantasy baseball team for the first time ever. The team is absolutely terrible, but I have Kyle Schwarber on my team. And so, of course, you got to pick a new name for the team, right? So I went with Stump the Schwarb.
Nice.
Any old sports fans will remember the show Stump the Schwab. So little homage there. I got one of my 2 fantasy hockey teams in the finals. The Oilers Nation staff, we all do a big banger league. So going up against one of the newcomers in the ON offices. So got to flex my muscles this week and see if I can pull out a W.
Yeah, you gotta show them what's up. Stuff the Schwab was literally my favorite show as a kid. It was insane, insanely good. We need to bring it back. But let's get into tonight's 4-game slate. We've got the Philadelphia Flyers hosting the Nashville Predators, the suddenly red-hot Philadelphia Flyers. We'll go with Ivan Fedotov tonight, projecting to see UC Saros for the Nashville Predators. Jacob Markstrom gets the nod for the New Jersey Devils. It's going to be Philip Gustafsson for the Minnesota Wild. The Avalanche will go with Scott Wedgwood. So if you play in season long and you're looking for a starting goalie tonight, you got a couple options if you want to stream, if you're looking for some help between the pipes. Scott Wedgwood grades it as our best goalie tonight. Casey DeSmith would be your second best option, looking really good as well for the Stars. So it'll be Scott Wedgwood versus Dan Vladar. Also projecting to see Joey Decord for the Seattle Kraken. It will be Casey DeSmith for the Dallas Stars. So those are your 8 starting goalies for tonight. Let's dive right into tonight's slate. We'll start at the tippy top with the Philadelphia Flyers hosting the Nashville Predators. The Flyers are minus 121 home favorites. As I mentioned, if you are unaware, they have parted ways with Tortorella, and things have gone very, very well. All of a sudden, Matvei Michkov is just the best player in the league, just cannot stop scoring goals. They scored 6 goals in their first game and 7 goals in their second game. Again, granted, those were against the Montreal Canadiens and the Buffalo Sabres, not really the who's who of defensive hockey teams, but things are looking better for the Flyers from a DFS perspective in the last few games. From a matchup perspective tonight, pretty good. We had somebody ask me a question in the DFO DFS Discord before we came live. How are the matchups with the new coaching staff? Fairly similar, right? Like they're still matching up the Noah Cates line up against the opposition's best, which isn't surprising. But then, maybe a little bit more strict with these other matchups. You're going to see a lot of the middle 6 going head to head, a lot of the fourth lines going head to head. Mostly line 1 versus line 1, line 2 versus line 2, line 3 versus line 3, and line 4 versus first line 4 as much as they can. So matchups don't change a ton. Best matchup for the Philadelphia Flyers side of things is actually that Noah Cates line, but the second line, pretty good matchup as well. They're going to go head to head with the Steven Stamkos line most of tonight. And Philadelphia 1 is very interesting tonight. Obviously, I mentioned from the top, Matvei Michkov has been really, really hot, but Konechny, this is Philadelphia 2 is really popular tonight. My apologies. They grade out tremendously well tonight. The underlying metrics are just through the roof. Matvei Michkov's played very well. Let's just take a look here. The last 10 games, some of the best players in terms of DraftKings points scoring, because we got to pay credit where it is due here with Sean Couturier. We haven't always paid a lot of attention to him from a DFS standpoint, but the 11th highest scoring forward over his last 10 games. He's played really well at $5,400, one of the best values overall. Over the last 10 games, he's really kind of upped his shot volume. And then obviously the last couple of games, things have really taken a turn. So that second line, pretty good matchup. Like I said, they're going to see a lot of the middle 6 here for the Preds. The second line, really good matchup. If they see a lot more ice time against the Stamkos line tonight than the third line, they're going to be in a really, really good spot. They're projected to be one of the highest owned lines on the entire slate. The 18.6% ownership across the board here is the second highest ownership behind just Colorado Wump. They also grade out second best overall. So again, charts are a little chalky tonight. Top 2 lines in the charts are also the top 2 chalkiest lines of the night. But I really like what you get here from Philadelphia too. They've looked tremendous since the coaching change again, not against the most difficult opponents. But if they see, 50, 60, 70% of their ice time up against Nashville 2 tonight, they should be able to stay hot. I don't know where it stands right now, but Matvei Mishkov was plus like 200, plus 190 for an anytime goal. If that's still available in any of your sports books, I hammered it this morning. Yeah, Zach heads on over. And obviously that feels like a really good spot. But Zach, let's start with the Philadelphia second line. Obviously, the top line as well as a line that we've played a lot of. They've maybe cooled off a little bit as of late. But the underlying metrics still really solid. They've got the best matchup overall. If you're trying to target the Flyers side and get a little bit different, Philly 1 does grade out 8th best overall. They're about a third of the ownership of Philadelphia 2. So they're a decent pivot option as well, a little bit cheaper too. So what are your thoughts here with the Philadelphia Flyers suddenly looking like an offensive juggernaut?
Yeah, it seems like a really interesting spot here tonight. I mean, just remarkable how quickly things change as soon as John Tortorella leaves the building. I mean, all of a sudden they're looking like this offensive powerhouse, like you said. This second line is just so hot right now, and you can understand why. There's the chalk coming in on them here today on this slate, right? I mean, they're not that expensive to build, around $17,600. The raw projections are solid for all three of these guys. The numbers have been just tremendous for all of them as of late. Mishkov over his last 20 games, 1.7 goals per hour of ice time, shooting the puck like he's Alex Ovechkin out there, 12.4 shots on goal per hour over his last 20 games. So tons of volume. And even Sean Couturier, like he's got some solid shot volume as of late too, 7.9 shots on goal per hour over his last 20. So, he's not really been a guy who's been like a huge volume shooter or anything like that over his career. And so that's a pretty nice little number there that you're getting. I think this line has a really solid floor here on this slate tonight. I got a lot of interest in building around them. The Nashville side of things, like it's pretty ugly there offensively, right? Like the metrics have been absolutely abysmal as of late. The one thing is they are playing some good defensive hockey still over this last little stretch. The numbers may not represent it for the top 6 there, but just 2.19 expected goals against per hour over their last 10. So I think this has a really interesting makeup of a game here. I definitely like this Philadelphia side of things, and just with how hot they are right now, I don't really think these defensive metrics for the Predators scare me all that much.
I think it's interesting, right? Because yes, Philadelphia has kind of come out gangbusters those last 2 games, but like you said, the Predators have been pretty solid defensively. The penalty kill's still been really solid. I think that UC Saros is in an interesting kind of chalks busting spot this evening, given how high owned the Flyers are coming in. That being said, there is a decent chunk of ownership coming in on UC Saros as well, third highest own goal in the slate. But at $7,600, he does look pretty interesting. If the Predators, they've played a lot better as of late, as you mentioned. Losing their last 2 over the weekend, maybe not not ideal against 2 really good clubs in the Blues and the Golden Knights, but I think it's pretty conceivable they could come in and win this game and maybe, blow some of that chalk up on the Flyers side of things. But yeah, I got a lot of interest. Just to give you an idea over the last 2 games, what the Flyers have been able to do. Matvei Mishkov, 4 goals, 1 assist for 5 points. Tyson Forrester, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. Ryan Poehling, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. Bobby Brink, 3 assists. Travis Konechny, 3 assists. Noah Cates, a goal and 2 assists. Sean Couturier, 2 goals, 1 assist. Those top 2 lines, every single player has at least 3 points in those 2 games. So, shot volume, like you said, 11 shots on goal for Mishkov in those 2 games. Couturier, 8 shots on goal. Konechny, 7 shots. So the floor really, really good for Philadelphia too. The ceiling obviously there as well if they can crack UC Saros. And I think Philadelphia 1 is a very interesting value pivot option tonight to get off some of that Philly 2 chalk. So I got interest in the Flyers tonight. I'm not going to get too carried away, right? Like it's only been a couple games. I don't, this is a team that couldn't score a couple weeks ago, but I'm also not going to, kind of underestimate the difference that this coaching change could have made. On the Nashville side of things, a couple injuries to talk about. Colton Sissons is out. He's out week to week. We're also going to be, wow, this is not loading very well. That is not fun. But anyways, Colton Sissons for the Predators is kind of not 100% sure. Can you hear Zach? Am I even live still? I'm having internet issues, it looks like.
I still got you, Brock. I still got you.
Nope.
Everybody, if anybody's in the chat, can you let us know if it's Brock or if it's me here? I do think Brock is totally frozen up here. Okay, well, I'll try and jump in here and carry things for a minute or two. Oh, there we go.
I think I'm back.
I think you're back.
I think. What's going on? Am I back? Something looks messed up still, but I'm kind of back.
You're kind of back. I can just lift myself up a
You
little
know
bit
what's
like this.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. I don't know what happened there. Like I was talking, I don't know what happened. Okay. I'm back. Where were we?
Nashville side of things, I think.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. As soon as Daily Faceoff didn't load, I was like, we are in big trouble. We have lost things. So okay. Colton Sissons, Jonathan Marchessault are out. That means I don't really have any idea what the Nashville Predators lines are going to look like. LaRue has spent some time with Stamkos, but the main thing is Smith, Svechkov, Verona have spent some time together, so I imagine that they'll be back together. LaRue likely the guy that moves up, but I really have no idea. I think the most pivotal spot that's going to be kind of up in the air is who replaces Marchessault on the top power play unit. I'm leaning Bunting, but it could also be Evangelista. If it's Evangelista, Nashville 1 fully correlates on that top power play unit. That is a top power play unit that has the third best grade this evening. So, they're the 6th best power play over their last 10 games. They go up against the 15th ranked PK. That power play is somewhat interesting. Like you said, the 5v5 metrics are far from ideal, right? Like they don't really look like a team that I want to target all that much given those 5v5 metrics, but on the power play looks okay tonight. This top line for the most part has been pretty solid. Matchup wise though, it looks better for that second line. So I have a hard time targeting the Predators tonight, but with Fedotov getting the start, like I want to have interest. I just don't really know where to go outside of that power play. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you there. Like it does feel pretty tough to get to this Nashville side of things here tonight. I think Steven Stamkos might be, I think their option might just be kind of going with some one-offs here. Like I think Philip Forsberg at $7,800 is a pretty solid play tonight. He's kind of been carrying the mail offensively as he's pretty much done his entire career in Nashville. 1.5 goals per hour over his last 10.6 shots on goal. The rest of this Predators lineup beyond him is just really not scoring a whole lot of goals or anything like that right now. So I think to me, like I'll probably try and keep my Nashville ownership sort of around Ryan O'Reilly and Philip Forsberg here. I think that's probably the safest route to go here, I think. And I don't even feel the greatest about playing O'Reilly. The nice thing though is that, a lot of minutes of 5-on-5, he's on that top power play unit. I think that's probably the route that I would go. But to be totally honest with you, I don't really have a lot of interest in getting to this Nashville side at all here. This top line is seeing a pretty good chunk of ownership. Coming in at 11.6%. That's the 4th highest owned line on this entire slate here. Again, like I can get it because of, who they're going up against here with Fedotov in the crease. And, his numbers of, the goaltending continues to struggle for this Flyers team. So I think I've got a little bit of interest. For me, it's probably just through the defenseman for the Predators and probably through some Philip Forsberg one-offs.
Yeah, like Blankenberg still looks good. I think Evangelista looks good too, right? Just given his price point, is we've talked about, it's kind of hard to find solid $4,000 plays. He's 4,400. He's been on a bit of a heater. It doesn't look totally sustainable, but he's playing like 17, 18 minutes a night. And if he ends up being the guy that moves up to the top power play unit, that gives him a little bit more of a boost. Like I'd rather play him than take a flyer on like a Michael Bunting who's looked okay at 5,700. That second line with Bunting, Stamkos, they feel a little too expensive in this matchup. So yeah, I'm probably in agreement, like leaning a little bit more towards Nashville 1, mostly Forsberg or Evangelista one-offs, maybe kind of pair them with a Blankenberg or something on the blue line. Because yeah, it is a little bit difficult to trust the Predators offensively. Fedotov obviously gave up 7 goals in his last start, but prior to that, he had been playing a little bit better. Like again, comparative to where he was, but in his first 6 outings in March, he did have a .906 save percentage, so not like a total bust. And this is a Predators team that really, not scoring a lot of goals. They've scored 3+ goals just twice in their last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So not an offense that's humming whatsoever. Any final thoughts on this game before we move it along?
No, let's carry it on.
All right. Let's get to the Minnesota Wild and the New Jersey Devils. We've got the Devils at -145, the Wild at +31, road dogs. Matchups for this one, pretty bleak on both sides. And the real difference here tonight is that the New Jersey Devils are going to shuffle their lines around a little bit. Again, as we don't load daily faceoff, that can't be a good sign. Matchups are pretty bad. You're going to see where are the lines? I'll pull them up on here, I guess. New Jersey 1 is Nation with Heischer and Bratt. And then you've got Meyer with Mercer on that second line. I just really don't know with this New Jersey team or this Minnesota team. The way the offenses have been going for either of them, This game is pretty bad. The one thing that stands out is the power play for the New Jersey Devils. It's the number 2 power play advantage on the slate. So like that is interesting. That would probably be like the only route that I would even strongly consider in this game. Like the Wild are just awful offensively. So to be completely honest with you, I've got a lot of interest in Philip Gustafson between the pipes. $7,400 seems like a great price tag for him if they can pull this one out 2-1, 3-2 or something. He seems like he'll be a strong play between the pipes. So I don't think I'm going to have a lot of exposure to this game outside of some New Jersey power play builds and some Philip Gustafson. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. It feels pretty gross in this game. Like, I don't really like either side of this offensively. It feels like both teams have just really been sputtering as of late here. The Devils have a playoff spot pretty much locked up out east there. But they just really don't seem to have any juice right now. Like, their offensive metrics are not great. Their defensive metrics are not great. The saving grace, I suppose, is that their power play has been clicking at a great rate here as of late. 11.3 goals for per hour on the power play over their last 10. Been some struggles on that Minnesota side in terms of the expected goals against on the power play, but Gustafson has been standing tall for them in the crease. So I don't really know how to get to this game. I think for me, like I might have some interest in like a little mini stack of Hischier and Bratt. I think that's probably going to be the limit of my ownership, maybe in this game entirely. Minnesota just, again, still completely lifeless offensively. Things are going to change when they get Joel Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov back. But right now, man, it just continues to feel really tough for me to feel confident building around this Minnesota side of things. I got a Jacob Markstrom in the crease in our DFO head-to-head tonight. I think he's a solid play. That's kind of my interest really in this game at all.
Yeah, I mean, like these two teams just met on Saturday. The Devils won 5-2 in that game. Nico Hischier had a hat trick. Jesper Bratt 2 assists. So like I could see why you would maybe get to some New Jersey Devils and just hopefully they can replicate that performance. Gustafson was in the crease that night as well. Matchup wise, though, I mean, it does look bleak. This Minnesota side of things is a good defensive club for the most part, and these defensive metrics are really strong, and it maybe comes at the expense of literally all of their offense. But the underlying metrics for that top line for the New Jersey Devils is outstanding. So when you take a look at the stacks, I mean, you got New Jersey 4th, then you got to go all the way down to 15th for Minnesota 2, Minnesota 3, Minnesota 1, New Jersey 2. Like they're all in the second half of the rankings tonight. So New Jersey 1 really looks like the only even relevant play. You obviously got some power play correlation on that line as well. So New Jersey 1 does feel like the only one that I would even have any confidence in tonight. And I think that I will sprinkle them in just because the field doesn't really seem to be getting to them all that much either. 9% Hischier, 7% Bratt. I don't mind getting to maybe 15% tonight, be over the field, and in case they can replicate that performance. But like I said, yeah, the goaltenders on both sides feel like the plays. I think Gustafson's been better than Markstrom as of late, and he's a little bit cheaper. So I lean that way, but I don't feel super strongly on one side or the other this game, and the market is pretty much the same, right? Like they're -145 plus 131. Like obviously Markstrom feels like a slightly better play based on the market. Gustafson, though, has shown the ability to just rack up 40 saves in a losing effort as well, and he could certainly get to the save bonus tonight. It's not out of the question, I don't think. So, do you have any final thoughts on this game? Like, is it like, are you just maybe playing a decent amount of New Jersey 1, just hoping for the best, and maybe they can replicate the other night? Like Luke Hughes obviously feels like an okay play if that power play gets there as well.
Yeah, I think so. One other thing about New Jersey 1 that's kind of interesting. All three of these guys, Hischier, Bratt, and Nation, have had a lot of success against the Wild in their careers, specifically Bratt. 4 goals and 14 points in 11 games played. Nico Hischier, 4 goals, 9 points in 10 games played. Stefan Nation, 4 goals and 8 points in 10 games played. So they've found ways to kind of get there before. I don't mind the idea of, a New Jersey 1 stack with Luke Hughes there. Hughes has been red hot as of late too. He's been looking really sharp over his last 20 games, 2.5 points per hour. All of that pretty much coming in the way of assists. So 4 assists in 3 games played against the Wild for Luke Hughes as well. So I think that's probably the route that I'm going to go, is pretty much as New Jersey 1 or bust in this game.
Yeah, you take a look here over their last 10 games. Timo Meyer leading the way, Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt leading the way, 13 and 12.4 DraftKings points per game. Luke Hughes at 9.8. So they've really been the ones doing a lot of the damage. Most of Timo Meyer's damage came when he was on that top line with Hischier's. With him back with Mercer, who hasn't really been doing anything, and that's a line that hasn't done much in the past. I just don't feel all that confident in that spot. And then these metrics are just holy shit. Like Ryan Hartman's played well, like Minnesota 3, maybe, right? Like you could consider it, I guess, but I mean they grade out what 18th? Yeah. And he's $5,000, so I'm probably out. Okay, Colorado and Calgary. We know that the Flames just don't score a lot on the road, so that's probably going to be an interesting spot tonight. In Colorado, they have the lowest implied total on the slate at 2.2 over the last 10 games. Offense has definitely looked up, right? The Flames have scored some more goals, but a lot of those games are on home ice. The Avs are super, super good defensively. Flames power play is struggling. Avs PK is basically about league average. So I do think it's going to be somewhat difficult to get to the Flames tonight, but they grade out okay. Like Nazem Kadri is on the heater of all heaters right now. He is just carrying this team right now. But the second line of Huberdeau, Frost, and Coronado have put forth some just outrageously good offensive metrics. We were on them a little bit last week, and I think that they could be somewhat sneaky tonight. The matchup is pretty gross, but they grade out fifth best overall, just 14,200. Not seeing a lot of ownership, so they're kind of a sneaky value option tonight. I don't know if I'm going to get a ton of them. Maybe mix in like 10%. And then Kadri, I think, as like a one-off feels fine. The shot volume's insane. He's on a heater, maybe more of a cash gameplay, just given his elite shot volume. This is going to sound a little bit silly, maybe, but Kadri and Kevin Ball correlate very nicely at 5v5. That might be a nice, cheap kind of mini stack to go. I've got them in my DFO head-to-head. So, I like Kadri just because of how well he's played as of late. I mean, if we take a look at every player on tonight's slate, he leads the entire slate in terms of DraftKings points per game over his last 10. That's better than McKinnon. That's better than a red hot, Cale Makar. Like, it's just, he's that good right now at just $6,400. He's 8 goals in his last 10. Prior to the last game, he was on like a 5-game goal scoring streak. Obviously you've got the Colorado narrative as well. So I don't mind getting back to some Kadri. He obviously is going to project pretty well tonight as well. But this Flames team struggles to score, on the road. So I'm not going to get too carried away. I'll have some Kadri. I might mix in a little bit of that second line, but that'll probably be the extent of it for me. How about you?
Yeah, I agree with you, man. I don't really think I can get to a whole ton of this Calgary side in this game. I mean, they're fighting for their playoff lives, right? But it just feels like such a tough spot for them. Like, this Colorado team is just so good, and the top 6 is really kind of starting to find some legs here again, specifically with that second line, right? I mean, we've talked about Brock Nelson a lot, about wanting to play him here, and hoping that he kind of works. Well, his price is starting to really come down. He's down to $5,300. That feels like a nice price for him, and his wingers there in Valeri Nichushkin and Martin Necas have just continued to be rock solid for the Colorado Avalanche. Obviously, Necas came in by way of the Mikko Rantanen trade. Valeri Nichushkin finally got himself healthy and ready to go here as of late. I really like the look of this Colorado side in this game. And, we talk about the ownership that top line is seeing here, which is a significant number. I think they're the highest owned line on the slate here.
Yeah, they are. 24.3%, 41% for McKinnon.
Yeah, absolutely. And then take a look at where Colorado 2 is in those ownership rankings. I mean, they look, coming in half the ownership. Yeah, sure, they're still the third most expensive, but I think they provide a really solid pivot option here on this slate tonight. The power play, it looks like it's in a pretty good spot for the Colorado Avalanche too. The Flames have been more or less average as of late here, finding themselves in some penalty trouble. And it really feels like that power play is starting to kind of fire on all cylinders. So I think this is a slate where you can build around the Avalanche and feel pretty good about it. I know for myself, I kind of got a bit of an interesting power play stack here to get exposure to all three, or to these top 2 lines with Nathan McKinnon, Valeri Nichushkin, and Cale Makar in our DFO head-to-head today. So hopefully that works out for me, because I could really use a win or two there. But yeah, it looks like a pretty great spot here for the Avalanche as a whole.
Yeah, I think obviously Dan Vladar getting the start makes me a little even more interested in the Avs tonight. He's been okay, 900 save percentage in his last 10 starts. On the road this season, just an 898 save percentage. just to go back to the Flame struggles for a second here, fourth fewest road goals in the NHL this season in terms of a goals per 60. And it really hasn't improved as of late. They averaged 2.41 on the season, just 2.45 road goals per game in 11 games since the Four Nations break. So still just a team that can't really get it done on the road. And then, the Avs, I mean, number one power play rank. The matchup at 5v5 are really, really good for both lines. The offensive metrics obviously outstanding for this top line, but the second line is really starting to come into its own. A bit of a sluggish start for Brock Nelson with the Avs. He's got 7 points in his last 7 games now. Would like to see a little bit more shot volume, a little bit of more time on ice out of him. But like you said, it was very hard to justify playing him when he was up above $7,000. Now the price tags come down. They are just $18,000. Nichushkin's been tremendous. Netjas is on that top power play unit as well. Like, I really like them as a pivot option off of some of that Colorado one chalk. I think that they're in just as good of a spot. And on a 4-game slate, that little bit of difference could be a big difference for you tonight. So, I have no problem getting to both these lines. I'll probably be over the field on Colorado 2 and close to the field on Colorado 1. This just feels like by far the best spot on the entire slate against the Flames team with Dan Vladar between the pipes. On the Flame side, like I said, I don't have a ton of interest outside of some Calgary 2 a little bit and Calgary 1. Are you playing them at all?
I don't know, man. I don't think so. I think I'm pretty comfortable crossing the Flames off here for the most part. Like, I think Nazem Kadri, that Kadri ball mini stack, I think, is a fine route to go. Calgary 2 has had some success here as of late, but man, it's just a brutal matchup for them here tonight, right? I mean, they're going to be seeing a lot of that middle six for the Colorado Avalanche, and the Avs defensively have been really solid as of late here. So I think for me, I'm pretty comfortable crossing off the Calgary Flames. I might consider Kadri for cash tonight, but that would probably be the route that I would go, and not really much ownership at all there.
Yeah, matchups are brutal, as you alluded to. Okay, final game of the night. We've got the Seattle Kraken and the Dallas Stars. Speaking of teams that just played each other, these guys met a couple of days ago as well, and it's kind of one of those rare instances where it's like back-to-back in the same city. So they just met in Seattle, and then they will play again in Seattle just 2 days later. You don't see all that frequently. The other night, the Dallas Stars, who are just scorching hot, coming off just a tremendous week last week, they beat them 5-1. In terms of the production that night, a goal and 2 assists for Mikko Rantanen, a goal and an assist for Hintz, a goal and an assist for Robertson. That top line really, really carried the weight that night. And then matchups tonight looks okay for that top line, but I'm not that concerned about these matchups, right? This top line's really starting to come into its own. The struggles a little bit trying to integrate Mikko Rantanen into that line early on have kind of seemed to dissipate, and they've been great. Like I said, I've got Hintz and Robertson in season long, and I loved everything I got last week. And these offensive metrics are really strong, and they're a super interesting line tonight because with as much ownership as coming in on Colorado 1, there's not a ton coming in on Dallas 2, comparatively. So I think that they're super interesting. We've talked about a lot of interesting value spots tonight as well, so I don't think it's all that difficult to get to them at 21,400. I want to be over the field on Dallas one tonight, and like I said, I think I'm going to be very low ownership on New Jersey and Minnesota and Calgary, and that's just going to allow me to get way over the field here on Dallas 1 because they have just played tremendously coming off a smash spot against these exact Seattle Kraken in the exact same matchup a couple days ago. So love them here. Dallas 2 continues to play pretty well. I just think that it's too difficult to ignore how good Dallas 1 has been, but the second line continues to have pretty good offensive metrics here. Might get to them a bit, but I want to jam in Dallas 1 here at maybe lower ownership than they should. I think they're getting overlooked a little bit with Colorado also on this slate. In terms of the power play, that power play was just the hottest thing in the world for a couple weeks. About a couple weeks ago. It's cooled off considerably as of late. They also face a Seattle team that doesn't take a lot of penalties. So not the best power play matchup, but at 5v5, I think that line can nuke again tonight. So let's start with the Stars for you. What are your thoughts here with Dallas?
Yeah, it feels like it's time to get back playing the Dallas Stars a lot. I mean, this top line has been just electric as of late. Rupe Hintz over his last 20 games, 5.8 points per hour of ice time. The guy has been an absolute machine, 4.8 assists per hour over that time. Jason Robertson continuing to score a lot of goals right now. It's kind of interesting, Robertson. So 2.3 goals per hour over his last 20 games, 1.4 individual expected. He's shooting only like 8.8% over his last 20 games, which is kind of remarkable, like half of his season average here. So it's almost crazy to think that he could be due for even more goals just based off of this bit of a lower shooting percentage as of late here. So I have no issue getting to this Dallas Stars side of things. I think for me, it's pretty much top line or bust. I'm not building a ton of lineups here. This second line has been good as of late. But for me, like this top line, I think the ceiling is just so high on these guys, right? And that's the reason why I've got so much interest in getting to them here. Joey Decord really struggled against the Stars in his career so far. 4 games played, just 1 win, a 348 goals against average, and an 868 save percentage. So I think there's lots of reason here to get to this Dallas Stars side of things.
Yeah, and I mean, he just got nuked by them the other day, 4 goals and just 20 shots. So, like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that it ends up being Philip Grubauer either, which would boost the Stars as well. But, like, obviously, if you take a look at the trends charts, the Seattle Kraken, not terrible defensively, but not great. The Stars really starting to come back or bounce back to life here, but they've also struggled defensively. I'm just going to wrap it up here on the Stars with saying, like, the second line, as you mentioned, it feels similar to Colorado too, right? Like, but maybe without as much upside, but like they've been solid. If we take a look at over their last 10 games, Matt Duchene 4th on the team in terms of DraftKings points per game. Mikael Granlund been solid, 9 DraftKings points per game, which is $4,800. So like they are an interesting pivot spot. You got Mason Marchment over 8 DraftKings points per game over his last 10. So they've played well. They are an interesting pivot option without question. And then take a look at the ownership. It's about 8% versus Dallas 1 being 11%. So like that difference isn't great enough, I don't think, for me to kind of get off some of that my love for Dallas 1. But obviously the price tag is considerably cheaper, so your builds with Dallas 2 will be considerably different. So I understand why you would want to get to both of them. Wyatt Johnson one-offs are still fine. I just don't like stacking Dallas 3 all that much. Let's move on to Seattle unless you got final thoughts on Dallas.
No, let's move it along.
So as I mentioned, like Dallas has really struggled defensively as of late. In his last outing, Casey DeSmith faced like 40 plus shots. Wouldn't be surprised if he sees a lot of rubber again tonight and could make him a very strong DFS play. But at the same time, Seattle is somewhat interesting. These matchups look really good with how poor the Stars have played defensively as of late. And these offensive metrics are starting to bounce back for Seattle. They're going to shuffle things about tonight. You've got Schwartz, Beniers, and Kakko back together. It's a line we saw together for a lot of time here, since they acquired Kakko. Obviously not together a lot recently. Yanni Newman with Stevenson and Eberle. I think that takes some of my interest away from Newman, who's been a really strong value. I still think he's an okay one-off, but like stacking him with Stevenson and Eberle, who don't possess a ton of shot volume, seems a little bit bleak. McCann, Wright, Burakovsky, I think is certainly an interesting line. You take a look at their offensive metrics. Oh my God, just broke the charts. Their offensive metrics have been outstanding together. They don't play a ton, but their matchup is good enough to, I think, at least consider them tonight. Seattle 3 is just $14,000. Newman just $3,300, and the top line just $12,400. So, they're seeing a decent chunk of ownership basically across the lineup, and I think that's kind of why I'm concerned. Is like they're like the Kings. Like, how do you like the Hurricanes? Which line's going to go off tonight, and is it going to be enough to win you a slate? So we've seen Seattle score a little bit more as of late, but I don't really know which line to target here. I will probably roll the dice with Seattle 3. They're the lowest owned line. They got the best offensive metrics, but I'm probably going to limit my Seattle ownership here.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have some limited Seattle ownership too, as I play a full Seattle 2 stack in our head-to-head tonight. I think they're kind of the line for me here. I mean, these 3 guys have been red hot as of late. Yanni Newman since coming in, 123 minutes, 1.5 goals per hour, 9.3 shots on goal per hour of ice time. He's finding ways to get it done. Chandler Stevenson, a little bit of offensive pickup as of late here. 2, Jordan Eberle, same sort of a thing since coming back from hip surgery. He's looked, or pelvic floor surgery, I should say. He's looked pretty good as of late too. So I think for me, it's pretty much Seattle 2 or bust. Admittedly, the reason that I really have them in as a full stack is because I was originally playing a Yanni Newman one-off, and then I needed a center and another winger, and it just so happened that Eberle and Stevenson fit in. Didn't really have a ton of time to kind of figure anything else out, so I said, screw it, here we go. Let's ride with Seattle too tonight. I don't feel the greatest about it, but they do have a great matchup score here in this spot. It feels like a decent enough line to kind of build around. It's a little bit of a contrarian build here, it feels like.
Yeah, as Jim B points out, Dunn and Montour. That's usually like I usually don't build around Seattle without playing those guys. I mean, you take a look at the value rankings here. They're second and third behind Cale Makar. Really, really cheap as well. Dunn 4,300 is far too cheap. Montour even down to 5,400. Both make sense. So, yeah, like the power plays kind of see a similar usage to each other. It's obviously not a great power play matchup tonight, but trying to correlate a little bit. Like, so maybe it's a little bit of Montour and Newman. Eberle Newman. McCann and Dunn. Basically, if you're playing that third line, right, Burakovsky, Dunn, McCann, like Dunn fits best with them. If you're playing the second line or the first line, it looks a little bit more like Brandon Montour. So at least in terms of power play correlation, I have to dig into the 5v5 correlation a little bit more. But yeah, the defensemen there look great. Full stacking in Seattle hasn't worked all that well for me. I will say it worked well last week when they played the Oilers, though. I stacked them up and it worked okay. But even that game, the scoring was pretty spread out, and that's usually the case here with Seattle. Any final thoughts before we get to the defensemen here?
No, let's talk about some blue liners.
All right. Luckily, I've already got them pulled up, so that is great. So yeah, Dunn, Montour both make a ton of sense to me tonight. Same with Brett Pesce, $3,800. Very, very affordable. He's been really solid, playing a lot of minutes lately. Projected for 23 minutes at just $3,800. Gotta love that. Same thing with Jake Middleton, over 24 minutes. He's down to 4K. His price tag's always a little bit higher than I want it to be, but 4K, I think he's pretty playable there. Devon Taves has been awesome lately, $4,600. Cale Fleury, I mean, he only plays like 14 minutes a night, but he seems to be busy while he's out there. A minimum price. I don't mind taking a swing on him yet again. I mentioned Kevin Ball earlier, $2,900. Another guy that's pretty interesting. And then another pair of Avalanche defensemen, Sam Malinsky and Samuel Girard, $3,100 to $3,900. Not seeing a lot of ownership. Both pretty busy when they're on the ice this year. And then Nick Blankenberg. We talked about him a little bit earlier at $3,400. I hope I didn't steal all of them from you. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, I mean, you always steal all the defensemen from me, but we think very similarly about how we look at these defensemen. So I don't really have a ton to add on a regular basis here. The one thing about Cale Fleury that I really like here, over the Kraken's last 20 team games, he's played just 92 minutes. But in that time, 7 games played for him, 9 shots on goal and 14 block shots, hit the block bonus twice. In games going up against the Calgary Flames and against the Utah Hockey Club. So I really like him at $2,500 here tonight. I think he's a really solid play. Definitely going to be in my cash build here tonight on this slate. Is just a real cheap punt guy. But I think he covered the defenseman off pretty well otherwise.
Let's take a look at just the raw numbers for defensemen over the last 10 games. So just if you take a look at floor, which is just their shot and block volume over their last 10, some of the cheaper guys, as we mentioned, Sam Malinsky, Brett Pesce, Nick Blankenberg, Nick Seeler, Jake Middleton, Cale Fleury, Vince Dunn, Samuel Girard, all stick out very nicely. But yeah, Cale Fleury, he's only played 4 in their last 10. He averages only 13 minutes a night, but somehow just continues to rack up the shots and blocks. He's very busy in his limited ice time. It's amazing how much we've talked about Cale Fleury the last couple times Seattle's played. Between the pipes tonight, pretty chalky, I think, up top. I think Wedgwood is a fine play. Probably not going to see a ton of volume, but he feels like the safest option on tonight's slate. Probably my cash goalie. DeSmith is probably my next favorite. Again, I like that. He's probably going to see a lot of volume. Hopefully he just doesn't throw up a stinker. But I think that the amount of volume he's going to see tonight makes him a really interesting tournament play. And the field feels the same way, second or tied for the highest on goalie on the slate. But I like both of them a lot. Markstrom, I'm a little bit more hesitant about. I probably won't play Fedotov. He just scares me too much. But I really like Gustafsson, and I really like Saros as cheaper options tonight. Gustafsson, especially, he's a little bit lower owned. And I really like his ability to potentially steal that game and see a lot of volume tonight. And then Saros is a great chalk buster at $7,600. I think it's a little bit more difficult to trust Vladar and Decord. Where are your goalie builds tonight?
Yeah, I like Jacob Markstrom here at 8K tonight. He's been great against the Wild in his career. 14 games played, 8 wins, a shutout, 222 goals against average, a 925 save percentage. I think volume might be a little bit of a concern there, but he looks like a solid play. I like these other guys too up at the top, Wedgwood to Smith. They look like solid plays. For me, I'm not sure how much Saros I'm going to get to at like 18%. Does not feel great to me. I don't mind some Philip Gustafson too. I think he could be an interesting play. I think that's probably going to be a bit of a lower scoring game there, as it ends up going to just be an absolute barn burner between these two teams because I said that. For me, that's probably where I'm most interested. I think Jacob Markstrom is probably my favorite play, just given, about half the ownership of these other really chalky guys up top there.
Yeah, like Markstrom, when I was building earlier, I found me like always like having $8,000 left over for a goalie frequently, and like just been so hesitant to click on him. I feel like he's burned me a couple times. He's had some better performances lately, so hopefully it's signs of things to come here, bouncing back. And obviously the matchup's good against the Wild, who just don't score. Okay, let's get to today's hat trick pick challenge. And please don't say it's going to be a low scoring game. I know every time we say that it's 6-5, but sometimes sometimes games with 5.5 implied totals get high scoring. It just happens. What was it? Vancouver and Columbus last week? Amazing. Okay, if you want to participate in today's hat trick pick challenge, all you gotta do is comment your hat trick pick in the YouTube comment section of the video on YouTube. Will get you entered into a chance to win a $25 gift card to Nation Gear. We've had lots of hat tricks lately. If somebody scores a hat trick that nobody picked, we'll just raffle it off to anybody who submitted a pick. So make sure you get those in. I'm gonna go first since I won our last DFO head-to-head. He's just gonna stay red hot. It's Matvei Michkov. How about you?
Oh man, I love it. That's a great choice. Let's go with the big dog on the slate. Let's go with Nate Mack up against the Flames.
Love that. Okay, let's get to today's daily face-off, our head-to-head lineup challenge. Still trying to figure out what we're going to do for a punishment, as it looks more and more like it's going to be Zach as the days move along. You said it. It's always been kind of like somebody wins 2 or 3 in a row. The other person wins 2 and 3 in a row. And it's been like 500 all year. But I have just been on the heater of heaters as of late, as I take a 7-game lead on the season with very few games or very few slates for this show remaining. So, we're going to have to figure out what you got to do here. I went with Nathan McKinnon, Arturi Lehkonen, and Jonathan Drouin, the full Colorado 1 stack. And then I just kind of went with some mini stacks that I don't hate tonight. Kadri Ball, I think, makes some sense. Evangelista and Blankenberg, they might not correlate on the top power play, and if they still correlate decently at 5v5, and then I could get lucky if Evangelista is the guy that moves up to the PP1. Just both feel like pretty strong value options in that game against Ivan Fedotov. And then I also went with Matvei Michkov, who's my hat trick pick at 6K. So didn't go with the full Philadelphia 1 stack, but Michkov in there certainly feels like the best play overall on that line. And then I'm on with Casey Smith between the pipes. Hopefully he makes 45 saves tonight. And for, once again, our lineups are quite different. You've got your skaters going up against my goalie. That's not always been the case as of late. So we shall see how things go. If things continue to go the way they have been, I think it makes the Seattle Kraken a terrible play and Casey Smith a great play tonight. So if we're just trying to forecast off of past DFO head-to-heads over the last couple of weeks, Casey Smith's going to be a rock solid play.
Yeah, I think so too. I mentioned earlier in the show, the Colorado power play stack that I got here. Nate Mack, Valeri Nichushkin, Cale Makar. I really like the look of these guys. We got the Matvei Michkov one-off, and then we had the Yanni Newman one-off as well. And then, the defenseman that I like, the 2 Kales on the slate. We're eating our greens tonight with Cale Fleury and Cale Makar. And then the couple filler guys, Stevenson and Jordan Eberle in there as well, with Jacob Markstrom between the pipes.
Fillers, but also a full stack. No matter which way you look at it. That's going to do it for this edition of the DFS Head-to-Head. Actually, Jim B said, wasn't there a hat trick pick on Friday? Donato? Was that Friday? I think it was.
Was it on Friday?
I think it was.
Let's take a look.
Double check it. I think it was on Friday because that means I'm going to have to do another giveaway tomorrow. We're just throwing money around out here these days. Yeah, it was Friday. I'm almost certain of it now that he says it.
Yep.
All right. Well, will there be anybody that submitted a hat trick pick on Friday? We'll be giving away another $25 gift card to Nation Gear tomorrow. So smash that like button if you're watching on YouTube and get your hat trick picks in. Before we go, shout out to our friends at rotogrinders.com for providing projected ownership for today's show. If you want to get $20 off your first month of RotoGrinders Premium, you can do so by clicking the link in the description of the video on YouTube. Does not have to be their NHL package. It can be any number of sports. With MLB just getting started, you can get $20 off MLB Premium for your first month. So if you want to join RotoGrinders, you can do so. get $20 off your first month with the link in the video. And then, yeah, also in there's a link to our DFO DFS Discord if you want to join the Discord. We've had a lot of just ginormous winners this season in that Discord. So come on in, join the party, and hopefully you can be the next big winner. That's going to do it. We'll see you back here on Tuesday. Until then, cheers.
Cheers.